Good morning, everyone. My name is Dustin Hartzer, and I'm not going to say an expert with WordPress SEO, but I'm going to share with you what I know. And there's so many people that are always asking me what to do with SEO, how to do better SEO, how to do this, how to do that. It's one of the most popular questions that I do get. So today I thought I would spend a little bit of time just going through and setting the stage and just explaining how this plugin works, explaining what we can do also in addition to this plugin. And we're just going to go and kind of dive right into this. Now, the way that I've got this set up is I've only got, I think, 12 slides maybe. It's going to be very light on the slides and very much high action inside of a development site that I'm running locally here on my website. So we'll be able to look at it, we'll be able to see and kind of play around with it. So one thing, if you're interested and you're of the tweeting type, you can go to dustinislive.com, and that's going to auto tweet and just send out a tweet and let other people know that you're learning about SEO magic when it comes to you're learning from me, and people can still sign up and they can join as the presentation goes on. So I'd be excited if you would share that as well and let my phone and all my other devices just ring like crazy. But you can do that at any time. dustinislive.com, just kind of a neat little trick that I've got going on there. But who am I? My name is Dustin Hartzer. You've probably heard me on a podcast or two or on videos or different things. I love WordPress and I love teaching WordPress. And so these monthly webinars are just something fun for me to do to get ready to just share awesome information when it comes to WordPress. I live and breathe WordPress. I use it every single day, and I'm always finding new great ways to use it and better ways to use it. So that's what my goal is with these webinars, just to give away free stuff, give away free information that's just going to really help you develop better, whether you're developing for others, maybe you are even just working on your own website. All of these things will be perfect things for you to learn today. So let's go ahead and look at today's game plan. What we're going to cover today is we're going to first look at the ways to improve our Google ranking. So I've got some tips there, some tricks first, and then we're going to look into the WordPress SEO plugin by Yoast. I'll show you how to install that and all the settings and the configurations, and believe me, there are a lot of settings and configurations. And then we're also going to link to our Google Plus account to WordPress. I'm going to share why this is important and how to do this. It's very simple once we have WordPress SEO by Yoast running, and it's just another way that we can get on Google's good side. And I'm going to say some things like probably, Google Juice or different things. It's all about, we just have to figure out what Google's doing and then try to appease them to make our sites rank better. And again, I'm not an expert, but these are some of the ways that I found to improve our Google Juice. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to optimize our website. Obviously, that is the big thing. SEO is what everybody's talking about. And we'll get to those details in just a little bit. But that's the very first thing that we want to do. That's the best way to get our sites. It's basically, we need to tell Google what's on each and every web page on our site, so it knows what's there. So when people are searching for those specific things, that they're going to pull up our page in our search results. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. We also want to link our Google Plus account to our WordPress account. I don't know if you've ever seen those little images that show up to the left of a website. So if you would go into Google, search your website engineer, like spaces in between it, and just do a Google search for those keywords, you will find that it will pull up my website, and it'll have a little picture right next to it. And that's my Gravatar, that's my G Plus account. And basically what that does is that just gives a little bit more like visual, like, hey, this is, somebody actually has written this. I don't know, like if it's you or me, or I just love clicking on links that have those images there, because I know that this is an actual person that's writing this. It's not a huge mega company that's doing this. Like that's all about the personality, the personal side of Google Plus. Plus, it lets Google know that, hey, I've got a Google Plus account. These are the sites that I contribute to. Like, it just gives you some link backs as well. Another thing that we want to do to improve our Google Juice is we want to have a fast loading website. That's another topic for another day, but there's a lot of things that we could do. Google likes fast loading websites. They like to basically, Google's job is to find they want to get the user the fastest data that they can. So if somebody searches for, how to build a WordPress theme, they want to figure out they don't want people to like click on number 1 and then go back and then click on number 2 and then go back and then click on number 3 and go back till they find the right information. They want to put that right information right at the top of their list. And that's what everybody is going for. That's what everybody wants. They want that top ranking in Google. And one of the ways is it builds into the algorithm somehow is have a fast loading website. So that's another piece of it, but it's not a big deal. Like, It's not the biggest piece of the puzzle. And again, the Google algorithm is this, it's almost like the credit score. We don't know, we know certain pieces of what it is, but we don't know exactly how it's weighted and how to really get on Google's good side. So we also want to post content everywhere. And so what that means is we want to go ahead and we want to, we want to start posting stuff, not only on our websites, we want to reach out. We want to, maybe link on other blogs. We want to submit content to other people's websites. We want to just go to these different venues, and we want to let other people know that, hey, we've got good stuff on our website. So we want to be able to post on Facebook and Twitter, and we want to do on YouTube. We want to do guest posting. We want to maybe I don't know, anything that you can do to post somewhere differently that will contain a link back to your site. That's going to be a big deal as well, because Google likes all those what they're called backlinks, and they want to make sure that the more backlinks a website has, the more valuable Google sees that website. So the rookie mistake here is only optimizing their sites for SEO. And I'm putting that in quotes because that's just kind of the keyword, the terminology that a lot of people use. Some people will just go in and they'll think they're optimizing their site just for SEO, but there's so many more pieces that will help in addition to SEO, and we're going to get into that a little bit as well. So the next thing we want to do, once we've set up those things, and again, you're going to get a recording of this so you can get all of those steps point by point. But the biggest thing that we want to do after we know that we're writing good content, we're sharing valuable stuff, we're posting different places, all of those things, then we want to add this plugin, and it's called WordPress SEO by Yoast plugin. It's a free plugin that you can find on the WordPress repository. You can search for it inside of your dashboard. I'm going to show you exactly how you can install it on my test site here in just a few minutes when we get to that part. But basically, all we need to do is we need to install the plugin, and we'll get that all set up. And then once it's there and it's turned on, now we have to configure it. There's about 9 million different settings that we'll go through. Okay, maybe not 9 million, but there is an awful lot. And then we want to tweak individual posts and pages to highlight its content. So what happens is with this plugin and how Google searches and ranks different pages, Google starts at the top of every page and it scrolls down, and if it sees all the same stuff at the top of the page, it in general thinks that it's the same page as it's already indexed. It already has this in its system. But there's these meta tags, there's different title information, there's all of this different stuff that we can tweak on a post and page basis to highlight the content and make that header information different, so that when Google crawls it, it realizes, hey, this is different content. I don't have this yet. I need to crawl the entire length of this site to figure out every piece of data that's on there. So we want to go ahead, and it's especially if you have a big site, if you have a site that you've been using for a very, very long time, you have hundreds of thousands of posts, it's going to take a very long time to go in and tweak all of these on an individual by individual basis. The good thing is, though, this Yoast SEO plugin actually does a great job of setting up some defaults, and so it will automatically trigger some defaults, and so it will do a very good job. And so you don't necessarily have to go back and rearrange and add all this new data to each individual post and page, but it is best to go and tailor each one specifically. And that's going to be the rookie mistake of this section, like not actually optimizing every post and page. It is very tedious. It should be done and needs to be done, but I know that even I struggle with doing this on a every page, every post, every podcast level basis. So it is tedious. It is a big deal. We will, I'll show you how to do this, and then it's all about just setting some time aside, and maybe you set aside a mini goal of, okay, I'm going to do 10 posts, 10 pages a week, and then go through and optimize each one of those, and then move on to the next week. And okay, I'm going to do 10 more, and I'm just going to kind of batch process them and work through every single piece. So that is the rookie mistake of this section. Lastly, and before we get to the demo, I want to talk just a little bit about the Google Plus account. And I talked about this just a little bit as well, but you can see that if you Google for your website engineer, just in Google, you can see that little image that pops up to the side. And it shows that at this point, whenever the screenshot was taken, that I had 255 people in my Google Plus circles. And so that's just kind of highlighting the fact that, hey, I've got people following me. If I'd had thousands of people in my Google Plus circles, that would look much better. That would show like, hey, this is an authoritative resource in this space. But just because that picture's there, I feel like I get more clicks because they see they make a personal connection with me, kind of standing there, and it's just there. So that's another really cool thing that you can do. To do that, you need to register for a Google Plus account. That's as simple as having a Gmail account or any type of website that's running Google Apps. Anytime that you have a Google username and password, you can sign up for a Google Plus account. And then within this WordPress SEO plugin, there's an area where you can paste a link to your profile into WordPress. And so I'll show you where that is. You just basically plop that right in there, and the plugin does exactly what it needs to do to get that information in there. And then you want to verify that it's working properly. There is a website that's out there that you can go and you can verify that that link is indeed in your site, it's embedded, and it's working properly. And then we want to link other sites that we contribute to as well. So in this Google Plus setup, we can actually go in and say, hey, not only do I contribute to yourwebsiteengineer.com, I also contribute to dustinandmelody.com, which is a personal website that my wife and I have. Or I also do hartzlerdm.com, which is my business site. Like, you can go and say, these are all the different places that I that contribute to, and that's just another +1, if you will, when it comes to that great Google content. So with that, let's go into the rookie mistake, and that, of course, is going to be not making a Google Plus page or profile or whatever they call these things these days. It's simple to do. Even if you don't have a lot of content there, it's still a really good thing to go and make sure you have that page. So I'll show you that after we get kind of rolling and get this plugin set up and ready to go. So now it is time, it's finally that time to go into the live demo mode. Let's go ahead and take our hands-on look at what we're actually doing with this thing. So as I get out of here, I'm just going to head on over to Chrome. We'll put this full screen mode here so we can see it. And I'm just running a website here on my computer. It's for you can see the URL here is html.dev. That just means it's running locally here on my machine. And you can see that I've really done nothing. It's just the regular dashboard. We're running WordPress 3.7.1, the latest and greatest version that is out there. So that is a good thing. But basically what we want to do is we want to go and we want to install a plugin. So we'll go to plugins, add new, and then we want to just search for it. And the search term that I always use, you can use WordPress SEO, you can use whatever. Like, I just usually search for Yoast. If you search for Yoast, that's going to pull it up. He's got a couple big plugins, but by far the one that is downloaded the most is the WordPress SEO by Yoast. And we can look at the details if we want. We can see that it's been downloaded 6.6 million times. It's compatible to the latest version, and the last update was actually just 3 days ago. And so we know it is a very valuable plugin. It's got lots of information here as well, but all we need to do is click the Install Now button, and that's going to automatically download it, unzip it, install it, everything it needs, and then we just need to activate it. Once it's activated, so let's go ahead and we won't do this. So it says, huge SEO issue. You are blocking access to robots. So we must go to our reading settings and uncheck the box for search engine visibility. So this is giving me this error because of the fact, if I go to my settings, if I go to reading, I'm actually telling I'm telling the world, hey, don't look at my site. Mainly because this is a development site, I've just checked this box. We're going to go ahead and undo it just for now because I don't want to see this red error on every single page. So when you're developing sites, you're more than welcome to use that search engine visibility screen that you can discourage the search engines from indexing. If you're running locally, you can have it checked or unchecked. Google's never going to see it because it's just on your computer. So it really doesn't matter, especially when you're getting things set up. So that error is now gone. We can go ahead and take a look in here at the SEO plugin. And you can see we've got a tour that we could take if we wanted to. We can reset default settings, and then we've got all of this different information here, and there's tons of stuff that you can do. Even if you want to purchase some stuff from Mr. Yoast himself, you can go and you can get some great information from him. But I think just with some of the information I'm going to share today, it's going to give you a great look at what we can do and how we can tailor and optimize our WordPress website for some SEO things. So we're just going to kind of work our way down these menus just a little bit. So we'll start with the titles and meta, and of course each one of these menu items now has a handful of choices across the top. And so there are a bunch of settings here, and I'm just going to walk you through them. I'm going to explain a little bit of what they are and how they need to be set up, or if they need to be turned on or off. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. So the first thing is title settings, and the checkbox here says to force rewrite titles, and this basically means that WordPress will auto detect whether it needs to force rewriting the titles of your pages. So if you know what you're doing, you can do this. Most of the themes, you do not need to do this. So it really depends on a theme by theme basis. You want to just go ahead, and most of the time, this will just be perfectly fine unchecked. A lot of these ones on the homepage don't necessarily need to be checked, but you want to make sure that this next one, the site-wide meta tags or meta settings, this means that no index subpages of archives. So if you wanted to make sure that page 2 of your results, page 3 of your results do not show up in search results, then you want to enable this. I don't know why you want to do this. This is basically saying any content that's older than whatever appears on my homepage, I don't want that to be indexed. I don't know why you'd want that. You definitely want to keep that box unchecked. Use meta tag keyword tags. So I don't know why you'd want to use meta keywords, but if you want to, that's an older way that you can optimize your site. You can check this box as well. The last 2 boxes I never worry about, and I usually leave this stuff in here as well. It's, I don't worry about cleaning up the head with those check boxes. So on the home page, when you get set up, the general settings, really nothing needs to be set up. Next, we're going to talk about the homepage. And so we see a bunch of this randomness going on here. And it's like, what in the world is all of this information? What is going on? Where is this data coming from? And I think that's coming from, I forget where exactly I forget where these symbols come from, but basically what this is saying is your title page template, and that's what comes in across the top. So you can see right here, like the Yoast WordPress SEO, like that's the title of this particular page. On this page, we're on this home page. It's called WordPress SEO, and then there's a pipe, and then it says configure Yoast plugin, and that basically is saying that it's taking the title of the website, so that the title is WordPress SEO. It's putting a pipe in there, which is a kind of just a line break, and then it's taking the description. And my description of this, or the tagline per se, is actually configure Yoast plugin. And I'll show you that real quick. If we go into our general settings, and I'm going to open up this in a new tab, you can see it's basically taking the site title and the tagline and putting a separator in between it. So we've got WordPress SEO, and then a space or a line break, and then configure your Yoast plugin. So that's what it's doing by default. That's how it's set up by default. And so it's basically, this is taking the site name, and then if it had a page, so if it would be like about page, contact me page, it would put that next. It has the separator, which is that bar, and then it has the site description. So that's on the home page. That's just generally how it's set up. And we could go ahead and put in a meta description template here. So if we wanted to say, this is the best resource for learning WordPress SEO. Maybe we wanted to call that in our description. That would be the meta description, we'll call it that. So this is the best resource for learning our WordPress SEO. And then if we would go over to Google, we can let's just go to Google. Whoops, not Google Fonts. I'll get it here. We just go to Google, and if we typed in, I'm just going to use your website engineer as an example here. So we use your website engineer, and so this is actually this line right here, your website engineer, a resource for WordPress websites and blogs. That is actually the where did it go? That is right here. This is where that information comes from. This is, if this site was live on the web and people could see it, that's what they would see when they go to this page. And so it's saying this is the best resource for learning WordPress SEO. That's essentially the exact same as what I've got highlighted right there. So that is where that comes from, and that's based on your home page alone. And so you can see like the resources page. You can see that it says something different. The webinars page, it says something different. Products page, it says something different, and that's all based on a page by page basis, and it's set up. Now I do want to remind you, and I've said this on a podcast before, but this area down here, this is all Google. There is nothing special that I set up to get these 6 links to show up here. I get a lot of people asking me, how do I do that? How do I get that set up? It's all a Google thing. I have no idea how they do it or where their method for their madness comes in, but I did nothing right there. That just, they did that on their own. So let's go ahead and continue moving through this configuration. So when we come to post types, In WordPress, there's a couple different types of post types, they're called. And there's posts, there's pages, there's media. Let's see what else there is in this theme. There's really nothing else in this theme. If you had maybe some themes have built in like a portfolio section. They have a different, they have all these different sections in their setup. And basically, those would all appear in this area as well. They're what's called custom post types. But basically, this is the general description. And remember back when we were in the presentation mode, I mentioned how there's a general setup. So if you wanted to not go back through and configure every single page, you can put in a general description for what's on that page. So on a post, say I had 100 posts, and it's basically going to go in and it's going to look for the title. It's going to look a title of the site. It's going to look for the page title. It's going to put a separator in, and then it's going to say the site name after that. And that's just kind of the generic formula. If you wanted to, you could go in and I could just change this, and I could say, like, on this page, I want to say it is Yoast SEO, and then maybe we'll use page for the page name. And so every page or every post will have the title by default, WordPress or Yoast SEO : and then the page name. And that's all that I wanted to say. And then maybe I want to say, I'll just put yada yada here, because this would be a description, and that's again a general description that's going to go onto every page unless we configure it on a page by page basis. And then these things I usually don't do these as well. I basically leave all these boxes checked, and I found really like a lot of the main settings will work unless you need something highly customizable. Maybe you don't need the title of your site to be in the title every time. Maybe you want to make it a little bit more compact, a little bit more you don't just need enough. There's a lot of variations in here, but I just want to kind of highlight how this piece works. And it's up to you to, just really figure out how you want to set it up. I've always had great success with just keeping these as the default as they are. And then when it comes to taxonomies, it's going to do the exact same thing. There's a template file here, or the categories are, if you go to a page and you click on categories, you'll get a list of all of the page or all of the category posts that have the exact same ones. Or you can do tags, you can do formats. So it's exactly the same thing. It's basically in the categories one, this is going to take the term title, so whatever the category is, and then it's going to say, so maybe the category is plugins, so it's going to say plugin archives, and then it's going to say the page name, and then it's going to have a separator, and then it's going to have the site name. So this, again, is very generic setup, but it's a good way to just kind of get started and getting that all set up. So, and then the other tag is if you have author archives and date archives. Again, these are all just generic default setups that you can add so that you don't have to go and configure everything from scratch. If you only have a handful of sites, you can leave the defaults here, and then you can go and configure them on a page-by-page basis. And we'll get to that and how that works in just a second. All right, so now next thing down the list is the social area. So if you wanted to, you can link this to, if you want to get your Facebook insights and all your stats and different things, you can go and you can add your Facebook admin account here. And so you would do that right here in this area, and that's going to put the right tracking data that you need in the header of your site. When it comes to Twitter, you basically put your Twitter username. There's not a lot that it can do with Twitter. And then the Google Plus, this is the one that I was talking about. So we want to do the author for the homepage. That's going to be my name, and so we want to go ahead. If we had a business page that we wanted to link to, we will put that in there as well. If we want to, we'll get to that in a second, how to add the Google Plus account as well, because that's in a separate area. That's not actually included within the WordPress SEO plugin. It is part of the plugin, but it actually shows up in the user menu. So we'll get to that in just a second. The XML sitemaps, these are basically just setting up, does your site have a sitemap and is it ready to go? You can go in here and you can, after you've published your post, it can automatically ping Google and Bing or different places to make sure that it searches different places. If you want to go to Yahoo and Ask.com, you want to go ahead and check those boxes as well. If you do not want to include stuff in your sitemap, you can check this box here. The media is the best one by default to not include, so that basically will not index every single picture that you have uploaded to your media library, every single Word document, everything that you've uploaded to that media library will not appear in your sitemap, which is a good thing. A lot of people might upload 2, 3, 4 images before they get the perfect one and forget to delete them, so you don't want to be indexing those so people can see those. And then you also want to make sure that you are checking the appropriate appropriate box below if you want to exclude these different things. So I really like how this plugin goes in, and it really sets you up for success without doing much right out of the box. So it knows what the default settings should be, and then it sets those, and then you can modify them and tweak them if you like. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and we'll ping Yahoo and ask every time that I publish a new post. Moving right along, the permalinks area. This basically is doing some things to your website if you need it to. If you want to strip out the category base, so if you are if you're searching via category instead of saying like yourwebsiteengineer.com/category/plugins and to show all the plugins, you can actually strip out that category from the URL. That sometimes helps with SEO things. It also makes your URLs look a little prettier, if you will. Another thing that you can do is you can enforce a trailing slash on all categories. And so if you needed to, I don't know why you'd really want to do this if you needed to. It looks like if you choose a permalink for your post that has like a .html file or at the end, it will force WordPress to add a trailing slash. I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent. I always leave that box unchecked. You can remove stop words from slugs, and so that's a good thing too. It keeps your URLs a lot cleaner. Again, that is on by default. Let's see what else is in here. There's a couple other things that honestly I don't use just because there's really no need. There's not a lot of things that you really need to do. So again, this page is a lot of just keep it simple, keep the default settings going. Couple more here before we get into the big deal. If we want to do internal links, if we want to go ahead and start breadcrumbs somewhere, we can enable those. And what breadcrumbs are is they're basically little links that go across the top of a post or page that says you are here, and it gives you like arrows or different things to go back to your homepage or forward to the next thing or whatever, and it gives that visual of where somebody is on your website. So if you wanted to use breadcrumbs, this is pretty simple. So maybe we want to have our breadcrumbs and we want this to be the separator between them, which is usually very standard. Some people will just do like a regular slash or a regular dash. Sometimes you can do like a little arrow, things along those lines. If you want the homepage to say home, you would put that right there. Maybe you'd say my awesome site. I mean, you can put whatever you want here, but that's basically going to mean when people see that word, they're going to click on that and it's going to take them back to the home page. If you needed a prefix for the path, not necessary, usually not necessary. If you wanted to have a specific link or what it says for the 404 page, which is the page that says, hey, you're lost, you haven't found anything, you could just put lost page. You could put anything that you wanted there. Again, if you leave the defaults there, I'm sure that there's something in the system, something that Yoast has programmed in there that will actually display something. But this just gives you the ability to customize it. And then you want to be able to, if you wanted to show posts, you can show breadcrumbs for your categories, your tags, your formats as well if you'd like to. So we'll say that we'll use those for categories. They're going to display on pages as well, and I'll show you how to do this in just a second. And then if you want to bold the last page in the breadcrumb, that's just a little bit of styling, so you want to do that as well. And then basically what you want to do is you actually have to copy this information right here, this little bit of text right here at the bottom. You have to copy and paste that into your theme. And so that's a whole nother discussion, but that is how you add those to your site. So basically Yoast is making it very simple for you to configure it, and basically all you have to do is plug in all this stuff and then paste this code into your theme, and it's automatically going to start working and it's going to show up. You paste it in where you need it to on your site. So that's going to take a developer or somebody that knows a little bit about WordPress and WordPress themes, but it is incredibly easy to do, and the tools here are just absolutely amazing. Two more things here we'll get to, and then we'll go to the demo of how to configure on a post in a page basis. But you got the ability to do RSS as well. RSS, it gives you the ability to customize what people are seeing when they subscribe to your website via RSS, and so you can see if you want to. Like this is basically pushing out at the end. It's saying this post and then gives a link, appeared first on this blog, and it gives a link. So that's what that's for. If you wanted to have a special call to action at the beginning or the end, you can do those as well, and you can plug those in right there. And then lastly, the import and export feature. If you are importing from a different SEO plugin, I'm sure that that's a question that somebody may have, like, oh, I'm using all-in-one SEO, or I'm using a different thing, a different system. You can import from any one of these old or any one of these other SEO frameworks if you like. You can also import settings from a couple different other plugins. Maybe you're already using the Yoast breadcrumbs, and so he's just added it to this plugin. And then, of course, like what's really cool too is you can export your settings. And so if you want to, like if I had this all perfectly set up on a site and I just knew that I needed a few little tweaks here or there, I could just go ahead and export the settings. And then on a different site, I could use this feature down here. I could import those. I could choose a file from my computer, and I can import those settings and automatically get those up and running within a matter of minutes. Now, you did see me, a lot of the things that I left here were completely blank or completely standard default, so it doesn't take a lot of time to configure. The big thing is actually going in and configuring a post or a page, and so we're going to do that right now. If we go to our very first page here, our very first post, it is called Hello World. It's just the generic Hello World. And I guess before we get into that, look over here on this side. You can see just some information. This is all WordPress SEO is making this display here. So it's saying that it gives you a color band basically if you filled any of the information out that we're going to go to, or if I guess basically it's telling us here that the focus keyword is not set, so it does not know what it needs to look for. It shows what our title is. It shows what our description is, which is nothing. This, remember, is taking it from the default settings that we just set up, and this is the focus keyword, so we have none of this. Now, one thing that I do notice is if you start having a lot of things going on in your theme, sometimes these columns will get very, very narrow. You can see that the title category is only this big. It's not very big at all, and if you ever want to just get rid of some of this stuff, like I only ever just leave this SEO item here so I can see, hey, did I set it up? Hey, did I not set it up? That type of thing. So if you ever go up to the screen options, you can go and you can uncheck these items up here, and it will automatically remove them from this list and kind of space things out just a little bit more. Just for the demo today, we're just going to go ahead and keep them just because I want to be able to showcase what that looks like. So we're going to go in and we are going to edit our post. Now, as you can see here towards the bottom, or I'll scroll up here, you can see this WordPress SEO by Yoast, and this is what this is the nuts and bolts of how this plugin works. Okay, so we've spent a little time getting it set up, but this is where you're going to really get your money's worth for setting up this plugin. So basically, we've got Hello World, we've got Welcome to WordPress, and that's our entire post. But we want to, okay, now we need to focus a keyword. We need to pick a keyword that people may be searching for, or that might be searching for and want to find this page. In this example, I'm going to use the word Hello World because people may be searching for a Hello World type post. So we can go in and we can just start typing Hello World, and it's auto going to populate. It's going to showcase different links, or it's going to, these are different Hello Worlds Google searches that are out there. So I'm not exactly sure where it's getting this data, but we can go ahead. Once we find what we're searching for, we can hit enter, and it's going to focus that as our keyword. Next, if we hit the tab button or we click on the SEO title, it is actually going to pull up this extra little menu that is going to give us some critical data. So it's showing that in our article heading, yes, we have the Hello World. So basically it's looking for Hello World in the heading, the page title, the page URL, the content, and the description. And so we can see that in the page title is down here, the SEO title, and it's called Yoast SEO. And so if we wanted to, we could just call this Yoast SEO, and then we'll call this Hello World just for the sake of doing it. And you can see as I type this, it changes this. So this is the preview that Google sees. So that's what this is up here. And it also changed that the page title is now, yes, it now includes the word Hello World. And we can do this down here as well. So we can say, this is the best Hello World post ever. And you can see again that it says that there is one. And so if we wanted to, we could take this information here, and I'm just going to paste some stuff up here. Maybe we'll put this here, we'll put some other gibberish, and then we'll put that in there one more time. And we can go and we can click again down in the box, and it now shows that yes, we have two different updates, or we now have the word Hello World appearing twice. And so it's kind of like a game. You want to try to make sure that you're getting at least one yes for every different area. And the page URL basically will will take the title. So if you take the title and then you have the permalink set up right, you can see that the URL for this particular site or this particular page is html.dev/hello-world. So it's got that word in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And so it's just going to update this. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do with this plugin. So this is the big thing that you want to do. This is where it comes on a customizable page-by-page basis to go in and customize everything that people are seeing or what they might be searching for. Next is the page analysis tab. And this one is hard. I don't necessarily think that you have to go and get all of these green. You would waste so much time just doing that. I like to tell people to focus on the content, create awesome stuff that people want to read, and then go through and look at this page analysis. I wouldn't worry about all of them, but like the very first one here is red. There are only 24 words contained in the body copy. This is far too low and should be increased. Duh, this really isn't a blog post. I'm not worried about that in this case. There's no images appear in this page. Consider adding images when appropriate. So that's another thing. Like, okay, yes, it makes a lot of sense. There's no images. Obviously, this isn't a blog post. And then you just go through and read these, and you can see that I've got 51%, or I'm ranked at 51% if they were going to give me a score, which is an F, or so it's not a big deal for this example, obviously, because I'm not creating a post. I didn't spend a lot of time drafting this thing up, but it also lets you know some of the things that you did right. So we've got the keyword phrases in the URL. It appears in the first body of copy. It gives you, it's basically like a guideline. Like, here's a checklist. You put a checklist right next to your computer, and as you're writing a blog post, you're like, oh, I need to have at least, say, 300 words or whatever the number is. Okay, done. There's an image. Yes, done. I got that. This page contains 22, the title has 22 characters, which is less than the minimum of 40. And so it's like, okay, now I need to have a better title. Okay, well, think about that. There's no outbound links appear on this page, so I'm not linking to anything. So that's another good thing that Google likes. And so as you continue to go through, you can see that this little icon up here in the right-hand corner has now turned to orange. And so that means like I've worked on it. I've got the keyword set, but I'm not good to go. I'm not green yet. There's a lot of more things that need to happen. And so if I would go through here, let me see, maybe I can add an image real quick. Is there any in the library? No, let's see if I can add an image from my computer that's, we'll use this screenshot here. This one will work, and we'll insert this right into the post. And then in order for these to update, we actually just have to save the draft or update it. So since it's not a draft, it's published already, we'll go ahead and update. And then we can go down and look, and again, it goes back to the tabs, and now we can see that the image on the page do not have alt tags containing the keywords of the phrase. So that's another mishap that I didn't do. So if I wanted to, I could go in and change that. So it's all about just going through and customizing and figuring out what is best. Again, take some time to do this, but don't spend hours just trying to get these all green just so it's perfect. If your content is awesome and people are sharing it already, do not worry about getting every single one of these things set up perfectly. When it comes to the advanced tab, I always leave this for the most part just kind of the defaults. If you ever want to put a article out there that you don't want Google to follow, you check the no follow box. If you don't want it to be in this XML sitemap, you can add that as well. There's a few little things that you want to do here. Not a big deal. Most of the time, the advanced tab you just kind of skip over. And then lastly, if you wanted to have a custom Facebook post or a custom description on what people will automatically share when it comes to Facebook, you can do that. If you want to have an image that's already there, ready for people when they share on Facebook, you can add that image there as well. And again, the same thing goes with Google+. I actually think that this Facebook image is fairly new. I don't really remember that, but that is really cool if you wanted to. Sometimes WordPress themes don't catch or they don't pick up some of the images that are based in your theme. So if you wanted to, you could upload an image or you could paste a URL of an image right in there, and that'll make it easier for people to share. So that's how you go through that piece of the puzzle, setting that up on a page-by-page basis. And again, a completely tedious process, but it is highly, highly worth it. Remember, too, if I would go and I would add a new post here, so I'm going to say Dustin's post. We'll call it Dustin's post. And then we can see that all of this stuff here is just this is the base stuff that comes out here. So remember, this was the main meta description box that I put in there for posts. I just called it yada yada. And the title, I just put site or Yoast SEO. And so if you do nothing, remember, if you have posts that are 100 years old, that's what it's going to look like on a page-by-page basis. Don't worry, it takes some time and just spend the time creating new stuff and then eventually going back and fixing all the old stuff. So that will help. Another thing that I want to highlight too is you'll go in here, you'll change these things, but then you'll notice that it doesn't update here. And that is because like it takes for Google to crawl the site again for them to go in and actually find and see the update and see the change. So you can submit this with the Google Webmaster Tools if you like to Google to crawl again, or the next time it's there and it's crawling through your site, it will update. So I know it's kind of maddening that you update the changes and sometimes it's immediate. You're like, yes, that's exactly how it works. And then other times it may be days before those things actually get set up. Lastly, what I want to show you, and then I'll get to some questions. I'm sure there's plenty of questions that are out there, but we'll go to the user section. And this, I will have to say that do as I say, not as I do. I always say do not use the admin as a username. Again, this is just a local site on my computer. Nobody can see it but me. So I've used admin as the username. But basically what we can do now, it's added a few extra fields, and these came from Yoast. So you can put the Google Plus button in there. You can use the Twitter username. So I'll put that in there. Dustin Hartzler, and the Facebook profile is, I think, facebook.com/your website engineer. And actually, Google, if this is kind of new news based on when this is recording, is that Google just came out with customizable Google Plus accounts or Google Plus profile accounts. So you have our custom URLs. So I know that mine is, oh, I can't remember what it is now. It might be http://plus.google.com/ I remember what the last part was, and that is like plus Dustin Hartzler. So that could be, if I spelled it right, that could be all you need to do. Basically, you just need to find what your Google Plus account is, and you can go and set that up pretty simply. So I think even if I just go to plus.google.com, if you're looking for that that URL that's normally found in the profile. So if you click right there on the profile page, it actually will go, and here's where your profile is. You just basically need to go there. So profile, home to profile, and you get that all set up. Another thing that you need to do when you are in the profile space, or that's actually in the, let's see. Remember, I talked about at the beginning on saying everywhere where you hang out online or where you contribute to posts. That is not it. I thought that was in the profile section. Maybe I don't use this nearly enough to know where everything is, but I thought it was in profile. Oh, then about. And then what you want to do is you want to scroll down. So you go to profile. So from your home screen within Google Plus, go to profile, and then from profile you click on the about tab. And then over here you can see all of the people that are in my circles here, and you scroll down and you look down to links. And so in the links part, you can see all of the different things that I contribute to. So I contribute to all of these different sites. If you need to add one, I believe you just go and click the edit page, and then you go ahead and you can add, just add a custom link, and then you paste your link to whatever your site is. So in this case, I would add a custom link. I would call it testing for webinar. And then it would be http:// I get it here, ://html.dev. And I'm a current contributor or a past contributor, depending on what I am. And then I will save that. It might give me an error because it doesn't know where that page is, but it looks like it's okay. So it shows that. And if you got a favicon tied to your site, it will pull that up as well. So those are that's the piece to get set up within Google Plus. You have a Google Plus account, and then you have to add yourself as a contributor. So those are the pieces there. Now, I think that's all that I have when it comes to WordPress SEO. Things that I want to share with you. I see that it is about 45 minutes in, so we're going to go ahead and turn to some questions. If you had any questions during the course of this whole thing, you could paste those over there in the questions area. Again, that I want to just highlight the fact that this is a part of the Conquer Your Website training that I do. You can find out more at conqueryourwebsite.com/VIP. But basically, there's 12 sections like this. They're not nearly as long. They're more concise and compact, but it's basically showcasing different ways that you can go and really make your web presence a lot better when it comes to WordPress. So let's go ahead and go through some of the questions. Let's see. Doesn't look like a handful of them. So if you've got some, go ahead and send those over my way. Someone says Yoast recommends no indexing subpages of archives. He says, so you'll never land on page 2 of an archive on my site from search engines. Oh, so that's a great point, Chad. So basically he's saying that he recommends no indexing of those subpages of your archive. So page 2, page 3, page 4. So you never will actually land on page 2 of an article on my site from the search engine. So maybe what that is I'm trying to think of how that would be a benefit. I see that he's got a link there. We can go and we can actually look at this article as well. We'll get back to that in a second. Thanks, Chad, for pointing that out. Put that there so it can, so we can look at that in a second. And then he says, Chad also says it doesn't prevent the post from showing up in search results. It keeps page 2, 3 from appearing in search results. Okay, got it. Jared asks, do you have any issues in the past running an update of Yoast on a site? I want to say no. I've had issues with like a caching plugin and some of the other plugins, but this is basically just kind of rewriting things to your site. So I don't think when it comes to updates, I'm never fearful when it comes to updating a Yoast plugin. I just always go ahead and do that and get it set up to be the latest and greatest. Jared also asks, can you use Yoast to modify the path of the URL for custom post types? I believe, I think so. I think it does that as part of that setting that was in there. So the setting with permalinks, I believe if you strip the category base, I think that's going to automatically take out the permalink as well, because that's an extra thing. So if you had a custom post type called products or custom post type called webinars or called whatever, I think that will take that out. Not 100% sure, but I believe so. Mark has a great question. He says, if I'm selling photos, should I turn index media on? And that's a good point. Like, you want those to be crawled, you want those to be seen, but I don't necessarily think that you want that to be crawled, because that's just going to show the image itself. So let's look at an example here. If we do a refresh here, we should be able to see this image that I've created now. If you click on this image, it's going to take you to this particular page. And I think when you go to, so we're looking at just this general page, there's nothing else there. I believe that that's what it's indexing when it comes to, I forget where that piece was, where that was, but I think that's what it's doing, Mark. So you don't necessarily want to index those images unless you want those to show up in search in like Google Images, or people to stumble upon that image itself. So I would say you still probably don't, because you want them to come to those particular pages so that they can purchase from those pages. Jason asks, you mentioned not indexing media. So what if a site is photo intensive and you optimize your photos? I mean, it completely depends on a site by site basis. What I said when I said not indexing media, that was kind of a general statement that you probably don't necessarily need that. But if you're all about images, you're all about showcasing your work via image, you can definitely keep that on. And if they're optimized, that's even better. So that's awesome. Yeah, you can do that. Alex says, the page title contains keyword phrase, but it does not appear at the beginning. Try to remove it to the beginning. Let's see. Yoast is saying that my site, the page title contains keyword / phrase, but does not appear at the beginning. Try to move it to the beginning. How do I fix that? That's basically saying that that's not at the beginning of your content. Maybe within your theme, maybe within your post, you don't have that information close enough to the top. I'm guessing that the page title, that's one of these boxes. Let's see here. Edit, and we will look at, I don't have a keyword set, of course. For this one, we'll go to this one here and take a look in the page analysis. So like this is saying the page title contains keyword and phrase, but does not appear at the beginning. Try to move it to the beginning. So you can see, I'm not exactly sure what that's referencing. So it's basically saying that the page title contains the keyword, which it does. You know, that's obviously what it is. And it does not appear at the beginning. Try to move it to the beginning, which I don't know why it thinks that, because it is at the beginning. It's called, because down here we've got the word hello world in the title, but it's not at the beginning of the title. So if I would try this and paste it here, and then do a save and update. Let's see if that actually fixes it. I don't know if that does anything, and yes, it does. Now it says the keyword phrase appears in the URL for this page. Oh, and it says the page title contains the keyword at the beginning, which is improved or is considered to improve ranking. So that's what that means. Basically, just take that title, make sure your keywords is closest to the front as possible. I know it's kind of silly, like sometimes it just doesn't make sense to put your keyword very first, but that's what it recommends, and that's going to give you the green gold star for that. Peter says, I use the Genesis framework that has built-in SEO features. Do you know if Yoast plays well with Genesis? Yeah, that's a great point. You don't necessarily need to use Yoast if you're using Genesis. I know that it does do some really great things on the back end of things when it comes to search engine optimization, all those things. The thing is with Genesis and all of the themes that have this quote unquote built in, if you ever want to leave platform. So if you ever someday like, Genesis is not for me, I want to get out of here, then I don't know if there's a way to export all of those settings. I could be wrong, but I don't know exactly if there is. And so it would be a very tedious process to go and transfer all of those out of Genesis. I always like to keep things in a plugins just because it's easier to manage, easier to control. So I would think that it would play nicely. It's just that, so I would think that the Yoast plugin would work perfectly fine with your Genesis framework, if you will, and you wouldn't necessarily need. I don't think there would be any problems. Now, I haven't 100% tested that, but I believe that you could use both of them and there would be no interference. That is a good point. Thanks for the question, Peter. Next comes from Douglas. Are you able to set up a Google Plus account for a business? Yes, you can do that. And remember, in that page, there was a page that you could do. You could link to the social area for Google Plus. This is where you would post in your publisher page if you did that. So I don't know exactly the steps to set up a Google Plus page, but if I did, you would do that. You would set that up, and then you could paste that in right there. Good question. Charlie says, I had to step away for a second, but I thought you said something about letting your WordPress.com account know about your Google Plus account. Did I miss something? It's basically just letting your WordPress site know. It's not WordPress.com, but it's just your WordPress site about your Google Plus account. So that's under users, and you go to your profile or all users. You get to that information, and then you want to go ahead and put in your Google Plus name, your Twitter username, and your Facebook profile. You can get all that information there, and that's basically linking the appropriate information from Google or from your WordPress site to the appropriate area. So, and again, it looks like I forgot to hit save when we did this earlier, but otherwise that information would have been there. Bob says, I don't see the social tab when looking at the WordPress stuff at the bottom of editing my post. Any ideas how I'm able to enable that? You don't see the social tab. The one thing that I would check to see is if you're running the latest version of his plugin. I would think that you would be, but the easiest way to do that is go to plugins, installed plugins, and then you can see that I'm running version 1.4.19, and so that's there. I wonder if it's anything to do with the social settings. I mean, I didn't fill any of this out, so I'm not exactly sure why you wouldn't be seeing that tab. Let me know if you don't have the latest version, and we'll continue to troubleshoot that a little bit. Chad says, some sites put the site description tagline in the title of every page. Yoast plugin doesn't seem to do that by default, and neither does the Genesis SEO. What are my thoughts on that? So, yeah, I don't know. I obviously don't know what Google likes because I'm not a Google expert, but I don't necessarily like to put the tagline on every page. Sometimes the description or sometimes just like the site is enough. It really depends. Like, I want to try to give the most beneficial information. And if my tagline, which is a resource for your WordPress information, if that doesn't make sense, that doesn't need to be on every single page. So I guess I really don't have a thought per se. It really depends. I don't know why they don't do these by default. Like, they have the option to do them by default, but I guess those are my thoughts. Sorry, it's kind of vague. I'm not really a big one when it comes to SEO. Like, I care about it, and I mean, my sites are ranking okay, or they probably could be better if I spent more time on them, but I'm all about creating that value, and people will start sharing value, and that really gets more bang for the buck than just trying to increase my rankings myself on Google. Phil says, rather than entering a post title in the SEO title field, is there a reason that you just don't change the title at the top of the page? Would that be a reason for keeping them different? Yeah, you could definitely change it at the top or at the bottom. If you do it at the top, it's going to automatically put it at the bottom. One thing to note, like when I post a podcast episode, so here's an example, a particular example for me. So my podcast episodes, my show notes are like, it'll say 150 dash and then the title. And I don't necessarily need that 150, which is the podcast episode number. I don't necessarily need to tell Google that that's my 150th podcast episode. So down at the bottom, I can copy and paste that title, and then I can tweak it and make it different down below. So it really depends. Like the top one is how it's going to display on your site. So if you want to have, episode number 304 at the top, that's where you would put it. But if you don't care that Google knows that information, you don't need to put that down at the bottom. Whatever is down at the bottom in that title box is what Google is actually going to see. That's what it's going to show up on your site. Ron says, any conflict with Yoast and WP Optimize? I have not used WP Optimize, so I cannot speak on that. Sorry about that. Let's see. Milko says, it doesn't look like there's a lot of difference in the all-in-one SEO plugin. I guess it's just a preference. Indeed, it is a preference. There's so many different options. I've just found that I like the WordPress SEO by Yoast. I think it's pretty much the same, and it's just a matter of, I think there might be a few extra little bells and whistles when it comes to Yoast, but you can use the all-in-one SEO plugin as well. I basically picked one early on, and I said that it's kind of like when I picked WordPress over Drupal early on. I said I'm going to learn everything that I know about that, a certain thing. So that's where I came up with WordPress SEO, and that's the one that I use. Howard says, is there an SEO penalty or any complexity associated with switching from one SEO plugin, all-in-one SEO, or from one SEO plugin to Yoast? And I would say no, I don't think so. Like, as long as you can, if you wanted to switch from, say, all-in-one or any of those other ones, I would recommend if you could switch from one of the ones that are here where you can import the settings. You can export from their plugin and import here. That would be a huge time saver. But remember, if you have 100 posts and you export or you kill one of your, the old plugin, you've now got to reduplicate all of that stuff on with the Yoast plugin. So it's almost like you've got to put all your eggs in one basket and pick which one you want. It's no problem to use any of the other ones. It probably, like I just said, like a lot of them will probably be set up exactly the same. Not exactly the same, but it will do a lot of the same things and really just kind of highlight some of the different things an SEO plugin can do. That's a good question. What does the local SEO plugin add to the Yoast plugin? So is that an extra, Mark asked that. I'm guessing that has, I'm guessing that there's an extra like module that you can add to get the local stuff. And I'm guessing what that does, oh, he's seeing this up here, the local search optimization from $69, what that is. That basically is helping you get into local market. So it's doing some things like it's making your site more optimized for sites like this, for addresses, for showing your hours of operation, for different languages, all of these different things. And so I'm sure that it looks like the module is being developed in partnership with Uprise, so a different company. So this is something that's a premium thing. So if you wanted to be more it's all about the local space. So if people were typing in, like, for example, where I live, Dayton, if they were saying like Dayton dry cleaners, like if you start adding this local SEO plugin, that's going to help me rank higher if I had a website running for Dayton, dry cleaners or whatever my example was. So that's what that local SEO plugin would do. Good question. Let's see what else is here. Bob says, I am understanding correctly that Yoast simply puts the updates and actual HTML behind my post, correct? So my point is, if I were to remove the Yoast for whatever reason, I wouldn't necessarily lose the changes that my plugin had made. So I wouldn't get the benefit of adding that stuff to future posts. No, what it does is when you add this extra data, that extra stuff on a page-by-page basis, like that is not necessarily adding that to the HTML. That is... Well, maybe. I guess I really haven't looked into how this plugin really works. I'm under the impression that it adds it as a record and somehow somehow loads part of the data. So all the title and the meta description, it loads that first, then it loads your page content, and then it loads more stuff down at the bottom. And it does that dynamically on a page by page basis. It could very well go in and update everything, update all your records. And then if you delete it, it's exactly the same. I guess I've never really thought about that and how that works. That would be something that I would have to look into and do a little bit of research to figure out if that does work like that. Chad says, if you put a Yoast plugin on a framework like Genesis or Headway, the framework will turn off its own SEO settings. That's awesome. Thanks, Chad, for letting me know that. So that is going back to a question earlier. Can you use the WordPress SEO plugin with Genesis or Headway or any of those frameworks that have that in? And he says, yes, you can. And if you do have that option turned on, it actually deactivates that and kind of turns that whole feature off within the framework. So that's really cool. Jason says, how do you deal with long tail keywords? I don't really deal with the long tail keywords. Basically, what I do is what I just showed you. So that's pretty much all that I do. There's like the Google keyword tools and different tools out there for long tail keywords, but that is not my area of expertise. Sorry, Jason, I cannot answer that. Yoast is saying that my age has no outbound links. What's the best way to add those? Your page has no outbound links. Those are basically links to other sites. So if you were writing an article about this latest widget, this latest gadget that you just purchased, then you would say, hey, you can find out more about this on, and then link to an Amazon article. A lot of posts might not necessarily have those. So that might be one setting that you actually do not need. So that's what that one is, and that's what that one does. Michael says, should you use your personal G+ page or your business G+ page in WordPress? I would say in the settings area, so in the settings in the social for the plugin itself, for Google+, I would put in the publisher page. So this is the page for your business. In the user area, when we want to user into profile and put our Google+ page in there, that would be your profile page. So you would put both of them in there if you have both of them. If you just have one, you just put one in. No big deal. Perfect. Bob says, the issue with me not seeing the social tab was I did not have the add open graph meta description box checked. Okay, so in order to see all of the data, see the social tab, when you're in the social area, you actually have to have this box checked. And then that gives you the ability to see that social tab on a page and post basis. Perfect. Thanks for letting me know, Bob. And let's see, anybody else that is coming up, any other questions that you may have? Charlie says, does the video SEO plugin still have value? I'm not exactly sure what that means or what that is. So if you could give a little bit more explanation, that would be awesome. Jared says, thanks. You guys are welcome. Thank you for coming and tuning in. I know that I had a lot of fun going through this information, going through this data. There's so much to learn. There's so much to know. But like the big thing is just continue to write awesome content that people want to read. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. Like if you're just writing to check all those boxes, like nobody's going to want to read that because you're going to have your keyword jammed in all these different places. It's going to have images just because you need images. It'll have outbound links to stuff that's really not necessary. So I wouldn't target getting all of those to green. I mean, if you get a handful of them to green, if you write a good post, you have a lot of words in the copy, I mean, you're going to be fine. That's one of the big things that you need to worry about. So it does take some time. It is a little bit of a process to go through, set everything up, but don't worry. You get it set up, get the defaults kind of set up, and you can go and set up, just a generic description, meta description for every page, and then that's what's going to go. And maybe someday you might be too lazy when you get ready to publish. I know that I'm guilty of that sometimes. It's like, oh, well, I don't have quite enough time to go and optimize everything. I'll get to it later. And you know what? Later never comes, but the defaults I'm okay with, and the defaults work fine. So let's see. It looks like Dustin says he switched from all-in-one to Yoast. It seems better. It is better. That's why I did this. No, I'm kidding. 100% kidding. They're all this. They do a lot of the same things. This is my personal favorite. Any last questions? Thank you guys so much for coming on and just hanging out with me today, wherever you are in the world. I know that you guys in Australia, thank you for staying up so late on a Friday night and or Saturday morning and hanging out with me. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you were able to come and And I'm not sure what December is going to hold. I've got it on my calendar for December 6th. If you do have any suggestions when it comes to content, whatever you'd like to see or do, learn about, let me know. I want to make sure that I'm creating value for you guys. And I know a lot about WordPress, and sometimes I know a lot, but I forget about things that I used to not know. And those are some things that I really want to share with you guys. And so you will get a recording of this a little bit later today. So in case I went through a few things a little too quickly, or you want to see some of those settings, how some of those things were set up, you can get a video. You'll get a video replay here shortly as well. It just takes a little bit of time for me to process this whole thing, and then you'll get an email just later today. So until next time, oh, wait, one more. Dustin says, if I deactivate all-in-one, does it erase all of the info? I do not know off the top of my head. I would keep both of them on as you're configuring. As if you got them both on, I'm not sure if that breaks anything for a time being, but if you do, then you can copy and paste your settings from the all-in-one, or I guess you've imported them from all-in-one. I would deactivate the plugin, and if you delete it, I think it removes everything. If you deactivate it, I think it stays in your database until it's deleted. So I don't believe that it erases when you deactivate it. Otherwise, if you were troubleshooting or you turned on a plugin, how plugins work is when you turn them on, or if you upgrade them, they actually deactivate them, they upgrade them, and then they turn them back on. So if that was the case, every time that you upgraded to a new version, 1.1 to 1.2, it would erase all your settings. So I'm pretty sure that it'd be okay. I would just delete it when you get a chance. And then Michael asks, he's like, do you want to use a personal G+ or business page with WordPress? Again, like I said, if you are on the social tab, you want to use business if you have one. On the user tab, when you go to user profile, you want to actually use use your personal account. So both of those are the ways that I've set up. I actually don't have, on your website engineer, I don't have a business page. I don't even know if I have a business page. I just think I have my profile. I can't keep up with the world of Google and everything that they're doing. So with that, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I'll do a little processing on the video. You'll get this later in your inbox. And until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, shoot me any ideas that you may have for an upcoming webinar. I'd love to hear them and share more wonderful WordPress news. With that, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.